Hi there, welcome to this short video about the Gravity.io API platform. This time we're going to be discussing how Gravity can support your use cases in relation to console.io and the Open Policy Agent. So these two pieces of software alongside Gravity are commonly used for microservices based architectures. Now, what console enables you to do is to be able to register services in a very dynamic way to ensure things such as high availability. So you can centrally manage all of your backend services and take them in and out of your group of clusters, if you will, and make sure that you've only got healthy services available and things of that nature. So that's a very powerful thing that console provides you with, and you can integrate directly with that from Gravity, and we'll show you exactly how to do that. The second point that we will look at today is the Open Policy Agent. And the Open Policy Agent is a centralized way of managing your policies, essentially, access control rights, all that sort of stuff, for your various different technologies and your various different tool sets that you might use. So, for example, you might want to have a consistent policy associated with your CI/CD pipelines alongside your API management solution. And we'll show you exactly how you can integrate with that from Gravity in this particular video as well. So let's get started. Here we are on the nice branded Gravity portal, and what you can see here is that this one is branded for Gravity at the moment with this nice starry background. Now what we'll do is we will jump into the console here for this portal. Now when we come into the console, we've actually built this API called Console OPA API. So let's jump into this and have a look. Now in relation to this, the two key points that we need to have a look at are firstly in relation to the proxy, so this will be in relation to console, and the second point is the design of our API, so applying policies, and that is in relation to the Open Policy Agent. So let's first of all start with the proxy. Now what you can see here is my entry point is ConOPA, and what we've then done is in our endpoint section where you click this edit group, what you have the ability to do is look at service discovery. So in the service discovery here, you can see that we've enabled it. We've selected the console.io service discovery here, and you can see that we've pointed it to our console server. In this case, we're using the default port of 8500 for console. Now the service that we're interested in this particular scenario is Echo. So when we make changes to and from the Echo service in console, we want the backend services that are available to our proxy, our intelligent proxy in Gravity, to be reflected automatically. So that's what we'll show you in one moment. So that's the console side of things. And then in relation to the Open Policy Agent, what we've got here is our simple HTTP callout policy. Now if we look at the HTTP callout policy, we're actually running the Open Policy Agent on the same machine that we were running the console.io service, just for the sake of this demo. And you can see it's on the default port, and in this particular scenario what we're doing is we're just checking. We just use this simple demo that says, you know, for user Alice, so what we're doing here is we're checking for this user Alice, can this user access a particular, so it might be read or write or something of that nature. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, what you could actually do here is you could replace this name here with the username, for example, so, or the issuer or something of that nature from the OAuth 2 policy. So let's say, for example, that you wanted to create, in this case we're using a keyless plan, but let's assume, for example, that you wanted to use an OAuth 2 policy or an OAuth 2 plan that meant your authentication mechanism was going through a nice branded OAuth 2 flow that Gravity Access Manager can provide. Now what you could do here, if we created that sort of plan, so let's say OAuth 2, and let's just call it OAuth 2 plan. So the plan, for those of you who may not be familiar with Gravity, the plan is about creating the contract between your API consumer and the API itself. And it's basically about productizing your APIs. So what I can do here when I define my plan is I can choose the security mechanism. So let's suggest we want to use OAuth 2. Okay? Now what we can do with OAuth 2 is, we'll ignore this for the time being, this resource concept, but you can actually extract your OAuth 2 payloads and you can also check the scope. So with your OAuth2 payload, that means the JWT token that is returned from the access management server, you can actually extract this the elements within it. And what you can see here is that the token payload is on this particular path here. So what you have the ability to do within your policies then would be able to replace this with a similar expression, just like this, but you would use OAuth.payload, I think it was, that we just saw. So that's exactly what you could see here. You could change Alice here for whatever you want, but just for the purposes of this demo, we'll use Alice here for this purpose. Okay. Now, what we'll do now is you can see that if we get a false response back, so let's say Alice, for example, is asking to do something other than read or write. So for this particular scenario, Alice has read and write access. So if I actually just show you my postman here, what you can actually see if we come to so this is exactly the same API as you can see that we've got up here, exactly the same. And in this particular scenario, let's say we want to use Fred rather than Alice, and we're going to say, does Fred have read access? What we should get back is false, so it means he doesn't, obviously. If we put Alice in here, let's say we do this one, and you can see Alice does, okay? So Alice does have read access. But let's say we want to see if Alice has post access, let's say. Okay, then the response is false, okay? So what we want to be able to do is to be able to call the API with a particular access. So in this, you could have any policy you want. In this case, we're just using this concept of access. We want to call our proxies. So what we want to do is we want to actually call this particular one here. So you can see, so let's take a slight step back there. Let's go into the concept of being the consumer now. So you can see how the console stuff is set up. You can see how with this HTTP call out, the open policy agents element of the API is set up. So that's everything that's set up at the moment. Now we can go back here and let's start acting as a consumer. So let's look at our catalog and let's look for all of the APIs that we have available. In this particular scenario, let's look at the console OPA API. That was the one that we just exposed. And you can see it's running on this particular, this is the gateway here. And you can see that this is the endpoint that we're calling. So let's copy that. And you can see here, that's exactly what I'm doing here. Okay. Now in this particular scenario, I put my access to read. Now what you can actually see here, so let's go ahead and let's actually just deregister. So I want to deregister my Echo 1 service. So let's just do that. You can see it's deregistered. Now what has happened there is I now only have one endpoint in my group in console. So if we go ahead here and we use access read, let's do that. You can see here it's basically just calling the Echo service. Okay? If I keep doing this, we'll just keep getting responses from the Echo service. Now all I've done here is I can register a service with my console.io agent. Now let's go and register another one. In this case, we're going to be calling api.gravity.io and /who am I. So this is the backend service that I want to add to my pool of backend services. So let's go ahead and do that, and you can see it's now been added. Okay, and straight away, you can see here, it's now immediately allowing me to now, so we're using the round robin load balancing algorithm here. So that is also set. I should have noted that that is also set from in here. You may have noticed this from when I clicked in here, but you can see that it's using the round robin algorithm. So if we now come back to this, you can see that if I keep just selecting this, it will flick between these to and fro. Okay, and if I go again and deregister this Echo 1 service, so that's the Who Am I service, let's go and deregister that. Now if I go and send this again, we will just keep getting the Echo service back. Okay, so you can see that working. Now let's look at the second part of that, which was in relation to Open Policy Agent. So if you remember, this one was specifically in relation to Alice. But let's say that we want to change this and we want to say she has does she have put capabilities? Now what we should get back here is request access invalid. It's because what I did here, if you recall, is that in my design for the HTTP callout, if I click into this, you can see that if the response is false, then I give a 403 forbidden response back, and the actual specific body that I return back is that requested access is invalid. Equally, if I go ahead and change this here to say requested access is false, for example, let's save it, you can see how quickly you can make changes to this type of policy and this type of setting in Gravity. So if I now come back here and I've saved that, if I go back to my Postman now and I request this again, you can see it's automatically updated and it says requested access is false. So hopefully that provides you a good understanding of how Gravity works seamlessly with Open Policy Agent and with console.io, working seamlessly within your microservices architectures and certainly a future-proof architecture for all organizations. I hope that's been very helpful, and if you do have any questions, please do feel free to comment and ask any questions that you might have. Thanks.